government not providing the context that they would seek, perhaps is that they haven't sought to enlighten themselves as to why the change in holiday and what is the backdrop upon which this holiday is now Indigenous Peoples Resistance Day. So when we're saying, well, you're a historian, but I'm just throwing this out there, right? When we're saying, look, if Christopher Columbus, in one of his 3 ships, crossed over to this part of the world in 1492, and we're saying October 12th, well, why celebrate his arrival versus recognizing the fact that things as we know it based on history has changed considerably since then? So why not reflect on that part of it, since that is more local or akin to us as a people living on this part of the world?
I mean, I agree, and I think that just to take it a step further, his coming, because when we celebrate National Heroes Day, or when we celebrate Independence Day, or even when we celebrate the Battle of St. George's Day, it is something that affects the nation in a positive manner, right? And the irony of celebrating something like Columbus Day for the past so many years was not something positive for the persons that were already here in this side of the world. So I think that Indigenous Resistance Day comes in light of that, where we have this foreigner that came to our lands, and it's not just a foreigner that came to our land, it basically changed the entire scope of this continent as we know it. So we don't celebrate that in the sense that, oh, all of these events happen, but we talk about the persons that were here and what they had to go through. And so, in spite of all of that, I mean, we can talk about, I could sit and talk to you about this all day, but
look, all I'm saying is, instead of celebrating the arrival of conquerors or conquistadores, if we're talking Columbus, we're talking Hernan Cortez, so on and so forth, we need to focus on what the impact was and what resistance was put up by the people who were here first.
I agree.
And that is the objective, I believe, in which the day was renamed. Yeah. And for there to be awareness and enlightenment as to why.
Yeah. I think that it's not necessarily fault of education per se, and that people don't want to talk about it. It's fault in the education that the documents are still not there. Like, we know, as far as the historian knows, this is what occurred based on what has been preserved through time. Yeah. Right? So, and those things are slowly starting to come up to light. We now have collaborations with universities from Mexico and Guatemala that can share more of the information that they have, because our documentation was lost, or their documentation was lost, and so we have that information. And so we're still putting those pieces together, but the persons that do know their heritage and what their people went through are the people from the indigenous communities. And so the fact that they're being recognized, I think it's something that all of Belize should try to celebrate and to learn more and to be more conscious about. So Indigenous Peoples Resistance Day is tomorrow, but we
commemorated yesterday. Indeed.
But I like the idea.
Brief history lesson.
Brief history lesson. I could go on, but it's only done to give me an eye that the show must go on. But of course, we will be covering more topics on Eye on the News when it comes to what happened and what was buzzing this weekend. But we move on with our eye opener for this morning. And our eye opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this. Taking a break from media in all forms is like a cleanse for your soul. In this modern age, we seldom question the pervasive presence of the media. Television, radio, newspapers, magazines, telephones, and websites are part of most people's everyday experiences. They enable us to stay informed while sometimes taking us on amazing journeys. But the content and experiences that these outlets offer also consume space in our minds and can have a profound effect on our emotional state. If you are someone who feels like your life is oversaturated with the buzz that comes from the media, you may want to consider taking a break. A media fast involves not watching television, reading any newspaper or magazine, checking or sending any emails, or even talking on the phone. Without the noise of the media running through your head, you are freer to focus your attention inward. Ideas will present themselves to you more readily, and you will find yourself available to revel in the small joys of your own life. You also will be freer to live in the present moment rather than focusing on what's going on in the news or your favorite soap opera. A media break can also help you to develop a more conscious relationship with news and fictional entertainment. Taking a break from the media may also give you a greater sense of calm, balance, well-being, and a new perspective on life. Coming from the media.
I'll give this to you. I'll give this to you in Creole.
Tell me.
No holds barred. You can't ask for a media man, but take break or fast from media, because that's how I make my living.
Right.
Okay, so
fair enough. No, I will say that the part where it says that being oversaturated with so much news, sometimes, and I believe that this is for me. I am a media personality for the morning show. I don't do journalism, so sometimes I feel that there is just too much to consume. And when I mean too much to consume, I mean there's so many avenues of probably the same topic. Or sometimes when I say we come up here and just talk about crime all the time, and it leaves a certain feeling in you having to consume that much news.
Well, it's beyond just news.
Right.
Content on a whole. Right?
And so for me, I do agree that taking a break from it does give my anxiety some sort of calm, because then I'm constantly worrying about what's happening out there and not necessarily focusing on what I'm doing. And that can take precedence, and maybe I'm not able to do my job properly or spend time with my family the way I want to because I'm focused on other things.
Well, I'll say this much, right? In understanding the point that the eye-opener is making and being able to see it from my perspective as someone in the media, it's a tightrope walk. It's a delicate balance between individual consumption of media content versus the provision of information that you either want to be entertained by, informed by, or educated by, right? We are tasked with providing that information, and it's up to you to consume and digest what is put out there based on your individual taste and what is important to you in that particular moment. Yeah. Now, granted, there can be times when coverage of something becomes overwhelming, right? But on your end, you're saying, well, this is too much. On someone else's end, who perhaps is ravenous, or who perhaps wants the information, and that's what we're putting out is not enough.
Yeah.
So it's depending on how you look at it. Now, if I am to look at myself in the context of the eye opener and the consumption of content, I wish I would be able to plug out and say, okay, you know what? I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks or what have you. I will totally disconnect from social media, from radio, television, or whatever else other medium, right?
Yeah.
But then, while that may allow me to focus on other things, perhaps more personal things, or what have you, I would be totally out of the loop returning back to work.
That's true.
So that's a consideration I have to make, right?
Yeah.
Because being on vacation doesn't necessarily means you're completely removed from what you need to be following.
Yeah.
At least from my end, right? And I would assume that it's the same for my colleagues. Give you an example. A colleague of mine has taken the next 2 days off, right? Returns to work later in the week. Good. Before she left on Friday, she was saying, okay, you know what? When I go home, I will completely withdraw, remove myself from radio, TV, whatever. And then the events of the weekend come flooding down, no pun intended, right? And she was the first to start communicating. It's difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And that's because we are in the media. Now for other people, it may be easier, right? But I always look at things this way, April, and sticking to the spirit of the eye opener.
Yeah.
Yes, it allows you to renew, but at the same time, let's be honest with each other. We are so invested and ingratiated in media that you can't live without your phone for more than 5 minutes, right? You want to know what's happening either on your WhatsApp or your Facebook, or you're on some other platform that gives you information.
Yeah.
So removing yourself from that altogether, you tell me how it goes.
I mean, I have, and the reality is that I guess it does depend on what it affects you in your work environment or your home environment. I have never consumed so much media before I started working here.
Okay.
So yes, I would keep myself abreast of the social issues and so forth, so I could take it to class, but I wouldn't, be so involved in learning that kind of content. I mean, when I would go on excavations, that would be 2 to 3 months without any kind of service and without any kind of Wi-Fi. It was the best time of my life. And I have to worry. And then that was peace. And then coming back, I was like, all right, I have to jump back into this reality and so forth and get back into a routine. So unplugging for me, never an issue. Now it's going to be difficult because I have to be aware for this job. But for the average human being that doesn't always need to be consumed with so much media, I would imagine that taking a break would be for their best interest. My 2 cents. Not come for me. But yeah, I think that like you're absolutely right. We are involved in each other's lives so much every single day, all day, that we want to constantly know. But do we have to know? That's the question. Do we have to know?
Well,
for you, yes.
look, I think even I remove myself out of it. But even so, there is a responsibility for one to know what's happening around, right? Like I look at my brother, my younger brother, he's completely disconnected. Maybe now things have changed, I don't know. You ask him, hey, you heard about what happened yesterday? No, I don't know nothing about that. So it's like completely aloof of what's happening, in your neighborhood. You need to know.
Well, we need to know what's happening with the weather. So we segue into the weather just like that for this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, April.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. Getting ready to come to the end of my shift.
You met busy this weekend.
Hello?
You met busy this weekend.
Yes, it was very busy this weekend. That's right. That's so true.
Well, Catherine, tell us what we should expect in the general situation for today.
Okay, as for now, April and Sally, we have a moderately east to southeasterly flow prevailing. We are on the track of weather improving significantly across the country except for the flood. But for the next 24 hours, you guys can expect sunny skies with a few cloudy spells. High temperatures today are expected to reach 87 along the coast, 90 inland and 80 over the mountains. Tonight, expect skies will be partly cloudy and the low temperatures will drop to 38 along the coast, 70 inland and 66 in the hills. Showers or thunderstorms will be isolated today and tonight, except for the south where you can expect a few more showers or isolated thunderstorms developing mainly at night and early morning. If you look at our radar right now, it's clean. We don't have anything out there. We still have the flood warning because flooding is still occurring. So we have a flood warning for the entire country. For all the details about the flooding and rivers and so, you will need to check with the hydrological unit. Those are the guys responsible for that. That is out of our portfolio. As we said, winds will be coming out of the east to southeast, 10 to 20 knots. The sea state will be moderate. Tides, you have a high tide will be occurring at 11:06 this morning, and that will follow by a low at 4:40 this afternoon. The outlook for Wednesday and Wednesday night is for partly cloudy skies. Shower activity will be isolated, except for the south again, where you can expect a few more showers or isolated thunderstorms developing at night time. You know, sargassum forecast, there's a small chance that new sargassum mats will drift onto our beaches during the coming days. And in the tropical weather outlook, we have a broad aeroflow pressure over the Bay of Campeche that has a medium chance of becoming a tropical depression as it moves farther away from Belize, that it is northwestward over the next 48 hours. And that is what I basically have for you. As again I said, a flood warning remains in effect for the entire country. That's it.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and we will be keeping our eyes out for more. What is the name of the unit that you said to ask about the floods?
Hydrology.
Hydrology.
Hydrological unit in Belmopan.
All right, we'll get the number.
Yeah. Yes. And they will give you all the latest updates on all the rivers, all the rising and falling, and what is receding or not. So those guys have the answer that I think the country
is looking
waiting
for.
to hear.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Do stay dry.
You too, guys. Have a good day and stay safe.
All right.
Bye. All right, there you have it. So we have to call hydrology. We call hydrology. All right. But of course, we have to get moving into our show for this morning and our segment of Eye on the News. All right.
All right, I guess we're jumping into that.
We're jumping into it just like that.
But so I don't know where to begin from. I'll start by saying that we left on Friday evening with an update from the National Meteorological Service with respect of Tropical Storm Julia. That passed over Nicaragua and other parts of Central America over the course of the weekend. Now, while the Chief Met Officer had informed that we would not have been impacted directly in terms of it coming our way, we would have still felt the effects of the passage of this weather system through the region. And so that's what we left with on Friday evening. Over the course of the weekend, well, the weather played out in a manner of speaking. And so quite a lot happened on that front, where we're looking at flood waters coming from the west. You have Benque Viejo, you have San Ignacio, you have certain parts of Toledo district as well, right, where, as you've seen here, it's inundated by water, right? And so this is where we'll begin from then, to say that across the country, as the Met Officer just mentioned, we are waiting to hear, okay, what will be the extent of the flood waters coming down from the hills and the mountains out west. As it is April, BCOL issued a release yesterday, I'd say several hours back, where they were informing of the opening or the releasing of the dam, because water has built up in their reservoir, so to speak, right? And so we'll look forward to more water. This is just what the present reality is at the moment, right? I know my colleague Dwayne Moody was out west yesterday, where he was able to speak with the mayor of the Twin Towns with respect of their response to the flooding. I will allow for Rick to cue that up. And then we'll hear from Mayor Trapp, and then we'll come back to discuss more about what's taking place out west.
Based on the torrential rain this morning and as well the fact that the storm hit on the southern part of the country and beyond, we believe that a lot of rain will be coming down from that area. And that was the projection this morning, and hence the reason we advised the market vendors to kindly relocate or evacuate from that area. But now I'm seeing that the skies are clearing up before us. With the skies clearing up before us, then that is good news, you know. So if we will not get much more rain, then that's good news. And I believe that the water will still rise up to the market area, but not beyond, like what you just mentioned, because if we're not getting more rains, then hopefully that will be it. Just that the only problem we have to take into consideration is that the Makal, where the Makal and Mopan River meets and empties out into the Belize River, we will have some backing of water there. It won't flow as smooth as it wants to flow because it's a smaller river then. So I believe that it will take longer for the water to recede here. And if water continues to flow down from the south and from the mountains, then we will be affected by more flooding indeed.
Let's talk about evacuation. I understand that there are several families that have already been evacuated. Can you give us a breakdown of that?
Yes, there are several families that have been evacuated in Bully Tree, a part of Kala Creek, a part of Benke. You know, the area behind the free zone by going to the border. Some families had to be evacuated this morning, and they are still in that process. You know, unfortunately, we were trying to evacuate some people from right here in San Ignacio, but they refused. And the problem is that the last time they went to evacuate them, they refused, and then just to know that 4, 5, 6 hours later, into the night, they called asking for support. But what we were trying to tell them is that maybe this time it won't be possible again, because we are putting our rescue team at risk whenever we do that, going into the deep waters, into the bushes, you know, and we don't want that to happen. So we are appealing to anybody living along the riverbank to kindly evacuate on your own, and if you cannot, then you can ask the emergency center to support you.
In the wake of this initial situation, there has been a humanitarian effort made by the government ministry and other agencies to assist the people who have been displaced as a result of the flooding. All right, so I know that the Ministry of Human Development has been on the ground providing assistance to people, both relief assistance and evacuation. What you're seeing here is from Benque Viejo del Carmen, where the Mopan River has swollen well beyond its banks, and you have that excess water inundating parts of Benque Viejo. What was mentioned earlier as well is the fact that the area where the Benque Free Zone is also underwater. Right? So the Benque Free Zone is adjacent to the border. So that entire area is covered with water. Go ahead, sorry.
We have seen flooding throughout the Mopan Macau River every single time we have a terrible storm, or when they release the dam after a terrible storm. And so right now we are focusing on the south and the west, mainly because that is where the floodings would begin. But do not forget, and this is just a warning for those that are up in the Belize River Valley, that water, that excess water is coming your way. So if you have time, evacuate.
Well, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security as well on Friday issued an advisory where farmers were also being advised to remove their cattle from low-lying areas and what have you, their livestock, because this is an eventuality, right?
Right.
So you would have had, in that case, sufficient lead time to be able to take action.
Yes.
Right. So I want to move from the west and go to Monkey River.
Yes.
Now, Monkey River has had, I would want to describe it as a perennial issue with the washing away of its coastline by way of erosion, and all these other effects. I would describe it as climatological
yeah.
effects, right? Where the water is eating away the community, quite literally. It's where it was perhaps 10 years ago. It's no longer where it is today, based on the ebb and flow of the waves and the washing away of the beach, right? And so over the course of the weekend, someone's house, an entire property,
Miss Eleanor's, yes.
right, was essentially, perhaps for want of a better description here, consumed by the
By the
water and
water.
the raging sea. Right, so I have a team that's heading down there this morning to get that aspect of what has been happening over the weekend as well, right? So I know that we have been covering the situation in Monkey River for quite a
some
period of time. I have covered it, Dwayne has, so on and so forth, right? But this is something that's not going to go away. As a matter of fact, the 5 Cs, the Caribbean Climate Change Community Center, right? Caribbean Community Climate Change Center has been looking at this issue as well, right?
I mean, research has been done at Monkey River since the 90s, so it's not common. It's not early news. It's not new news as to what has been happening at Monkey River, and I do think that one of the bigger issues is not this is happening, but solutions. We are left in a state where us as the small countries are the ones that are being most affected by what the larger countries have been doing in terms of fossil fuel and climate change, right? So now that we're looking at a space like Monkey River, and that is just one of the spaces, Belize has quite a lot of Monkey Rivers. And the reality is that what had happened to Miss Eleanor's house, the house that collapsed in one of the older homes at Monkey River, that is just this one effect from this one flood that we are covering, right? What has been washed away for the past decade or so. Tons of homes, people are being displaced, the population is dwindling, and that is all happening in the span of, 2 to 3 years that we've been covering Monkey River?
Well, it's well beyond 2 to 3 years,
but
right?
what we have been seeing lately on the news.
Okay, if you, just for some historical context perhaps, right? Monkey River was once a thriving town in southern Belize, where a lot of people lived and conducted business. It was like a commercial hub. Over time, people started moving out of Monkey River. So it is safe to describe it as a shell of its former self in present. But what has been happening more often, more recently, are the effects of what some would say is climate change, or adverse weather conditions that affect directly not only the livelihoods of these people who remain, but also their ability to live there, right? So it's not only affecting their income, so to speak, but at this point, because of the extreme conditions,
It's no longer habitable.
to some extent, it's no longer habitable. Right. So that's just another aspect of what we're covering over the past few days from the beginning of the weekend.
I mean, and we right. So that's the house right there in Monkey River, and if we are talking about coastal areas that are being drastically affected. We haven't even touched on the other. We haven't, from what we've seen, right? There hasn't been anything on social media from other coastal areas. More in the central, in Kaya Central, in places like Armenia and St. Margaret that were affected and so forth by Hurricane Julia. We have relief aid at the moment that is currently happening right now as of yesterday, and for those that are in other rural communities in Benke and Sokots.
So I think one thing to note here, so while there has been direct on the ground response to what is taking place, I think as a country we're yet to hear from the Prime Minister as to what government will be doing formally. And I'll say this because this coming Friday is set to be a House meeting. So I'm almost certain that perhaps preliminary estimates of what the flood damage is and what the relief package will be like will be discussed on Friday, right? I'm certain that that was not the purpose for calling the House meeting,
Right.
but
No,
this
that will take the
has
first one.
happened, so this will be discussed most certainly, right? So.
We are going to be keeping an eye out on these flooded areas. I mean, social media is filled with
Yeah.
with persons that are posting and showing videos and so on as to their respective communities. As of last night, the Ministry of Education did put out a statement saying that schools in the rural areas
Yeah.
will be cancelled in the west and south part of the country.
Yes, indeed. So,
Yes.
for persons who are either watching or what have you, who live in the rural outlying areas, then if they have kids or if they're going to school, then classes have been called off until further notice by the Ministry of Education.
The University of Belize also took out a statement saying that all classes will be held online. So if you are face-to-face, you don't have to go to campus. Your lecturers will be providing classes online. So you don't have to travel then.
Yeah, so all right, so let's move away from the flood coverage for the time being. There were other things that happened over the course of the weekend
Yes.
as well. I know on Friday, it was reported elsewhere in the media that there had been a raid on the Caribbean Brewing, Caribbean International Brewing, which is the parent company for Mine Beer.
Yes.
Right, and a substantial amount of cash was found, and there's an investigation that is ongoing. So we're going to be looking at that as well from the perspective of the investigation that is taking place. I would want to presume that the police may have been involved in carrying out the raid or provided the support for the effect of this activity, this operation. So we'll speak with the police department this morning to find out where they are, what they're looking for, and perhaps if there's any breach of the laws,
Right.
then what the applicable charges or what that process would entail.
Right.
So I just wanted to put that out there that we're aware of this as well. There were 2 murders over the weekend.
Yes.
One involving a well-known biologist, conservationist, someone in that field of science. This was out in Harmonyville over the weekend, where Celso Cowich unfortunately lost his life in an instance of murder. Right? Again, we have been covering this issue along with the flooding situation in the West. So we'll have more details of this particular homicide later on today. I know that my colleague was able to speak with someone off camera regarding what transpired in Harmonyville over the weekend. We'll have more details from the Belize Police Department with respect of this particular incident. There was also one in Pomona where an individual was also murdered.
Yes.
And a suspect was being sought in respect of that incident there as well. I think though, and I want this perhaps to be the final point that we're discussing here, over the weekend as well, yesterday if I'm not mistaken, there was a post from another media house with respect of Court Area Representative Faber, right? Now, we've been covering Patrick Faber in different capacities and different situations for quite some time. What has happened in terms of his leadership of the United Democratic Party and that being taken away, what has happened in his personal life that has to do with domestic issues and what have you, we've covered the gamut that has to do with Patrick Faber, his political ambitions included and what have you. Nonetheless, on Monday, one of our colleagues in the media from a different media house posted a video
Yeah.
with Mr. Faber in a situation with another woman. Now, as we've said, we've covered domestic issues surrounding Mr. Faber for quite some time.
Yes.
And so the point that I'm making here has to do with where ethics and responsibility lies, right? So that when I was reading the responses to the image being posted, outside of what ought to have been the proper context for the posting of the video, right? So that people understand, okay, this is why or this is what, and what have you. It gives you some kind of a background. Outside of that, the backlash and the firestorm, based on what we're saying ought to have been a more clear and conscious decision in terms of media ethics. That should have been the guiding light as to how far you're going to go, what you want to put out there, and what the impact of it would be.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have persons like Deidre Haylock.
Yes.
She has been for years a media practitioner. She's a colleague of ours. She's been involved in looking at the impact of media and media coverage and the responsibility and roles of practitioners
Ethics.
and what have you,
Yeah.
the ethics involved as well. And so she flagged it,
Yes.
right? She immediately flagged it. And she's a past anchor
Yeah.
at that particular media house. And so it raises the concern or the question of what our responsibilities truly are to our public. How far are we going to go? Where is the line drawn between what we're putting out there as fact versus what we're putting out there for the purpose of sensationalizing something and what have you?
I think that this is one of those incidents where whenever we have guests on the show and they would say something, and you, the media, you cover this all the time, and this is the image that you portray, this is the result of that kind of language towards media. And we had this conversation last week where I was asking you about how you do your journalism and the approach that you take with a certain news story and what all you need to do to prepare before you actually do your reporting. When it comes to any kind of news, and I think that this is something that an average civilian would take, that whenever something happens, it is the responsibility of the media to tell us, right? And I think that that's a, yes, fair way of looking at any kind of content, but also it is how much of it do we want to see, what is necessary for the public to know, what is truth and what is fact, which I know those lines are very thin, and what is propaganda. And a lot of the time, whenever we discuss any kind of content surrounding the media, people flag it or label it as propaganda because, like you rightfully mentioned, there is no backstory to the post. It's just, this is the post, this is what we think is happening, you as the viewer consume it how you will.
Well, in this case, I guess the few lines that accompanied the actual video posting attributed it to an ad from within the party. Now, you would appreciate that for quite some time the United Democratic Party has been in shambles, right? And so there's this bitter rivalry and enmity within the party itself. So this, in a manner of speaking, is par for the course. You expect that when people are bickering in it, you know, that these kinds of attacks and what have you will continue, and your laundry, your dirty laundry will be aired and what have you.
Yeah.
But like I said, and I keep saying, it goes back to the responsibility that we must exercise, right? Because I'm saying, look, if you're going to go down that road, you have to provide the actual news value of it and give the actual context in which you're putting that out there.
Because
if you don't do that, then you're just leaving it out there sort of like in suspended animation, and then people are supposed to react to it, and then it's what you get.
Because if we didn't discuss it, I would have never guessed that it was an ad for you know, a political ad. I would have thought that was a video that somebody caught and then gave it to the media and then posted it up. That is how it was portrayed. And that already sends you a sort of message where this is what we have. You as the viewer, as a consumer, you take it for what you will, which is already kind of, it's not a good look, it's not a good image. So naturally we're going to take it as, again, another incident again, without even reading the content, the background story that the news media posts, because we watch video first before we read. It's the reality of the thing. We're going to see the thing that is entertaining to us the most. We're not going to read a backstory. And that is where you as the reporter come in and tell me the backstory so that we could absorb it. It's just my 2 cents. I teach, so I know people not like read. And I'm just being honest, we don't watch a video before we read the post. So
not all of us, but yes, I get what you're saying.
Yes. So it's important that you give that backdrop like you rightfully said.
I think, and we're going a bit beyond here, but I think because we're in a day and age, and this goes back to the eye-opener, and I like how everything this morning seems to be connecting, right?
Yes.
When we put information out there in a fast and furious manner, without really sitting with the information and understanding, look, what are the potential consequences or ramification of putting certain information out there? When we don't do that, then we're opening ourselves up to either catching flack from the public, for either litigation in some cases if there's not proper fact checking of the information that we're putting out. You name it, right? Because we haven't really sat down to digest and prepare the information and put it out there so that it can be consumed in bite size, so to speak.
Right.
And this is a classic example for me in terms of learning and understanding our role.
Yeah.
And
I think it goes back to something. I think when we had Deidre on the show, she rightfully mentioned that there's no schooling for this. We don't have fields that say this is how you do proper journalism or this is how you do proper investigative journalism. Persons that move on to do journalism on a train for it after years of being in the field and stumbling and so forth before actually having it as a profession. And when we think about the media, we don't think about the effect, the power that it has. We see it after ramifications like this, the power that it has, but we don't talk about the overall scope of the power of the media. You all bring us the events that are going to go down in history for the next millennium, right? And it is important. It is very important, and I mean, I know you know it, and I have to tell you that you task yourself with getting it right, with getting the facts right, with making sure that you understand the content that you are consuming before putting it out there, and making sure that the viewers have a well-rounded amount of information that they can decide for themselves how they take in that information, right? But we don't have that conversation as civilians, and then we don't have that conversation in the classroom either. So it takes a lot of stumbling and falling within the media in Belize and most of the world to figure out how to get the information out that is going to impact the people in the way that you need it to.
Yes.
Right? So I mean, kudos. I do not envy your job, but yeah, it just goes back to the ethics of this situation.
So there's, like I said, I mean, a lot has happened over the past 3 days when we left on Friday, and certainly we will be covering these stories and more later this evening at 6 o'clock. If you're wondering why I'm dressed a bit more casual today,
I'm not asking you about it. You're about to travel out?
Yes, there's a likelihood that I'll be on the road. So yes, I mean, we're going to bring you as many of the stories from across the country as we possibly can. We've been working since Saturday on a range of issues that are affecting us as a country, and we'll have those for you at 6 p.m. this evening. You can catch us live on 5 or catch our content being streamed on Facebook and on YouTube.
to our show for this morning. We are celebrating, well, recognizing two very important moments in history on today. And the first segment, we'll be starting off with the Day of the Girl Child brought to us by UNICEF. So we'll have representatives in from different schools and a representative of UNICEF to discuss the Day of the Girl Child.
And of course, our second segment will be the observation of World Mental Health Day. And mental health is always a huge issue because it's not talked about enough.
We don't talk about it enough.
So we're going to take our second segment and discuss just that.
All right, and before we get into all of that, we're going to take our first break and we'll be back with our first conversation. So stay tuned.
After a rough week of school, Jake and his friends decide to treat themselves to frozen coffee. And since they don't have cash on them, they decide to use eCash. With eCash's geolocation feature, Jake can easily find the nearest coffee spot. With eCash's built-in option to split bills, Jake can pay the bill and his friends can reimburse their portion of the bill. Jake scans the merchant's code and confirms payment. Jake then views his transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made, then taps the split the bill button where he selects the evenly option to evenly split the bill. The application splits the bill automatically. His friends receive and accept the request. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash makes Jake enjoy his digital lifestyle.
If you are ailing due to a chronic disease and are left permanently invalid before retirement age, you may want to check if you qualify to receive invalidity benefit. The invalidity benefit exists for persons who are unable to continue working due to permanent illness. To qualify, you must be under 60 years old, must be sick for 26 consecutive weeks and certified to be medically unable to perform any type of work, must have at least 5 years of paid SSB contributions and at least 5 paid within the 3 months leading up to your illness. If you do not qualify for the invalidity pension, you may be eligible for the invalidity grant. Want to know more about invalidity benefit? Visit our website or contact any of our offices to have someone assist you. Also, be sure to visit our Facebook page and give us a like to stay informed. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Everyone, including our elderly, needs to stay connected with their loved ones. With Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program, senior citizens can sign up for 10 megabytes of unlimited internet at a low monthly cost of $25. Citizens over 65 can sign up with a valid ID and receive free installation plus 1 month free on selected broadband plans. Visit a Smart showroom near you for more information on how you can enjoy Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program. Smart, bringing people together.
Great Belize Productions Channel 5, proud winner of 9 Caribbean Media Awards for 2021. Best Investigative Report, Best News Item, Best Coverage of People with Disabilities, Best Financial Literacy Journalism, Best Videographer, Best Television Commercial Spot, and the People's Choice Award, with 2 special mentions for financial literacy journalism.
Dwayne Moody, Isani Cayetano, Marian Ali, Paul Lopez. Your News 5 police teams do whatever it takes, go wherever they need to go, so you can catch the story wherever you are, whenever you want, on whatever device. Channel 5 believes on television, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, because news is now everywhere, all the time, and so are we.
Whether you're at home, on the road, at work, or at school, if you see news happening or suspect that something might be up, Call or text the Channel 5 News Belize tip line at 672-5555. You don't have to give us your name, just give us the tip. That's 672-5555. Call or text us so we can check it out.
And we'll be back in a few, so stay tuned. Thanks, Jen. Hey there, we know you have to head out to work shortly, but don't forget that you can stay tuned by watching us on our Facebook live stream. Find us at Open Your Eyes BC, and you can continue watching there. You can also download Facebook Watch on your streaming device, and you can watch at your own convenience.
And for all the behind-the-scenes fun, follow us on Instagram at OYE Belize. So,
find us
and follow us
today.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
Belize has the highest population of the Antillean manatee in the world, and we'd like to keep it that way.
The Sea to Shore Alliance and our partners have been fighting to protect our environment and these endangered manatees.
Each year, however, their death rate continues to increase rapidly due to watercraft collision, destruction of coastal habitat, entanglement in fishing gears, garbage pollution, and poaching. Yes, poaching.
These animals are in dire trouble and they need our help.
It's our responsibility as Belizeans to protect what belongs to us.
In order to create a safe environment and future for our aquatic friends, we must act now.
Respecting no-wake zones and manatee habitat is important.
Practice sustainable fishing methods and properly discard damaged fishing gear.
People throw garbage everywhere, except in the garbage can.
Garbage stops here.
When we safeguard important habitats such as mangroves, seagrass beds, the barrier reef, and our marine lives, we are safeguarding our livelihoods.
I want you to look after my future. What about me? When I grow up, I want to see manatees.
We are asking for your support, and we thank you for recognizing the importance of manatees and their habitats.
Thank you for caring.
Big thank you from our aquatic friends.
I am a humanitarian.
I am a humanitarian.
We are humanitarians.
Protect. Protect. We protect.
We should protect our manatees.
We must protect them. Protect what belongs to us.
Protect ours.
Protect your manatees, please.
Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not try, won't even try.
Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try. Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. People die every day, I'm not going with ya. I'ma find my own way, I'm not going with ya. It's okay, I'll wait. Even good people make mistakes. I don't wanna realize when it's too late. Drinking and driving is never safe. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. If you're drinking and driving, I'm not going with ya. Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try. Been drinking all night, feeling so high. Better not drive, ain't gon' try.
Welcome back. We decided to switch things up a bit this morning in respect of our segment. So what we're going to do, we're going to discuss World Mental Health Day first. That being said, I have to my right Dr. Alejandro Matos. He's a psychiatrist. To his right is Ingrid Bonilla. She's a psychiatric nurse with the Central Health Region. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
And on my left, I have my good friend Alex Evans. I have Kyla Gentle and Lucien Dawson. Right? These are all mental health advocates. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Now, we're observing World Mental Health Day. And as I had mentioned just before the commercial break, that while we are aware of it, we don't discuss mental health issues enough. Oftentimes we hear when things go wrong and it's attributed to either a mental breakdown or what have you, but we don't have conversations in the open to discuss matters that affect us on a mental level. So that being said, it's a broad topic, very broad topic. We're all afflicted by different mental health issues. Let's begin, Dr. Matos, by encapsulating perhaps what it means, what is mental health, and what are some of the general issues or the more common ones that people grapple with.
Yes, mental health is part of the global health of the people. Remember that we are social, biological, and with psychics too. That means that we need to see the person integral. Mental health is the connection that we have with the rest of the community. the main problem that we had in mental health, the people think that usually it's only schizophrenia, or when the people say crazy people. Absolutely no. Mental health is depression, anxiety, grief, post-trauma, family violence. All that is part of the global health. And this year, the World Health Organization have a slogan about that. We need to make mental health and well-being a global priority for all the people. And it's important that we are here talking about this subject.
So tell us, we were discussing that we have actually, that the UN recognized this day as World Mental Health Day, probably about 2 decades now. So perhaps Ms. Bonilla or Dr. Bonilla can chime in. And why is it that it still feels like it's taboo to talk about mental health in our society?
I feel that what happens is that when it comes to our society, we still have a long way to go. So it feels taboo because it's not something that we readily discuss. We ourselves, as mental health professionals at times, if you ask a mental health professional, are you seeing someone for the issues you're going through? Imagine the general public. If it is difficult for us to sometimes accept ourselves, seek help for ourselves, then everyone else might be having some difficulty as well. There is still stigma, but I must admit, I've seen it coming a longer way now. It's far different than it was 5 years ago, than it was 6 years ago. So I can tell you that for this year alone, how many people have reached out to us asking for us to come in, do presentations, and I'm talking from the school level, going into organizations. So yes, it feels taboo because unless you're in that community, you might not be hearing about it much.
Let's turn to these guys. We have you described as mental health advocates. Let's begin first of all by getting from you what either inspired you or what prompted you to take up this particular mantle. Let's start with you, Alex.
All right, morning again. For me, it was my own struggles with my own mental health that have prompted me to be a little bit more outspoken about it. In 2018, I was diagnosed with dysthymia, and with that, around that time, I was experiencing severe depression and severe anxiety. And from my own journey of learning how to manage my mental health, learning how to take better care of my mental health, and then later on seeing and understanding just how many people go through their own struggles has been the thing that has prompted me to want to speak about it more.
For me, I would say something similar, my own experiences with mental health. For a really long time, I didn't even realize that I had struggles with bouts of depression. And it wasn't until looking back in hindsight, I realized that from primary school, it was something that I would struggle with sometimes. I would become antisocial. I would sleep a lot because, as we were discussing before, depression is something that it drains you, physically, and that was something I struggled with. And throughout my life, I kind of used poetry as a coping mechanism, and it was when I began to take my poetry more seriously and began to share it publicly, and I got feedback from people saying, hey, I've experienced the things that you talk about in your poetry when it comes to what you struggle with, and I felt good knowing that I'm not the only person dealing with this, and hearing that, getting that response from people kind of motivated me to want to talk about it more, to want to let more people know that you're not alone in what you're struggling with, you know. So I would definitely say my art and my poetry is one of the main things that led me to becoming more of an advocate for mental health.
So for me, it's a two-pronged. I have always struggled with mental health, with my mental health, and ignored the signs. And my wake-up call was in April of last year. I lost someone close to me because of suicide. And I have always struggled with suicide ideations. And that was my wake-up call to say that I needed the help. I needed to go and get help, because the morning of that incident, I saw the individual and they were smiling, and you know, everything was normal. And when that happened, it totally broke me down. And so I went through a time of grief, and it was in that time of grief I realized that something was wrong. And I went to several mental health professionals, and then I also found out that I struggle with dysthymia as well. And that was when it became, you know, full circle for me. Like, okay, now I understand why I had certain moods, or why I had certain mood swings, and why at the end of the day sometimes if I interact with people, it's so draining because of the condition that I am suffering with. And so from then I began to advocate for people to get the help that they need, because there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Nothing wrong.
I mean, I'm looking at the three of you, and very admirable for you to come up and to speak about your own struggles. But I imagine that you're all from about the same generation, right? And so I'm looking at that as a window of maybe why I'm hearing about it more, because for the four of us, we're kind of in that same run where we're openly talking about mental health. But what about persons from like my parents and my grandparents, that I can't tell them, hey, you have a problem and maybe we need to seek help? So how are we becoming more, how are we having more advocacy for this kind of problem?
Good point. The generations, yes, are more accepting at this time and do advocate more. And the older generation have been taught that you don't speak about certain things. So roping them in is a little bit difficult. You find that it's the relatives that would sometimes come in and say, you know what, I think my mom needs help, I think my dad needs help, but I don't know how to bring them for help. So usually it's having the conversation. That's the key thing. We must talk. And there is we can't tie a rope around them and say, let's go. You have to tell them. You have to educate them. And even if it comes to the point that you call us to do that education, yes, it's not as easy as it sounds. It's a little difficult, but the conversation is the key.
I think if you're looking at it from a generational point of view, the older generation is of a certain belief, a certain school of thought, where we're saying, look, only people who are crazy, quote unquote, need to see a counselor, a psychiatrist, or a mental health expert in any capacity, right?
Crazy or weak.
Or weak. Right?
Yeah.
But then we realize in our present time that it's not limited to only people with deep psychiatric issues. As you've mentioned, simple things like depression, and how the mind and the heart works together when you're dealing with emotional issues that tend to become mental issues and what have you. I think it's only now that we're opening up a bit to have the dialogue openly, where you have young people who can come forward and say, you know what, something is off. I don't feel my normal self today. You don't wake up with that spunk or that excitement or what have you, and you know immediately that, you know, things are off. You have some people who are reclusive in terms of how they feel and how they manage how they feel and how they think, versus other people who can come out and say, look, I need to go see our mental health, you know, a professional, a counselor, somebody to guide me or interpret what I'm feeling, because sometimes we don't fully understand what it is that is different about us, and we need someone to kind of point us in a direction. Alex mentioned dysthymia. So did my good friend Mr. Dawson. And I don't know that the majority of people out there know what dysthymia is. Because if we are to give them a clinical definition of what it is now, they would be able to say, well, I have that, I feel the same way, you know? And it's unbeknownst to them what the actual term is or what have you. I'll ask Dr. Mathis for you to explain that a bit for our viewing public.
Yeah, usually dysthymia is a condition that the people feel a lot of symptoms compatible with depression, like sadness, low energy, low appetite, increasing the time to sleep or decreasing the time to sleep, increasing the weight or decreasing the weight, and the capacity to work is a little bit decreased, the capacity to interact with the other people is decreased too, but don't reach the level of the severe depression. Okay, this is dysthymia. What happened with severe depression? Then the people is with a lot of trouble to work, with a lot of trouble to interact with society. Sometimes they don't like to eat absolutely at all when they have in severe depression. The people don't like to go to the bath, to take care about the hygiene, and start with suicidal ideas. By this reason, it's important to know the most important thing, I think, is the education about symptoms. You can be sad. It's different to depressed. Because we are human, we can be sad, we can be happy, we can be stressed, we can be anxious. But when this sadness interferes with our usual daily life, okay, the first sign of alarm, okay? When all these symptoms interfere with our capacity to work, with our capacity to interact with our sister, brother, daughter, is the second sign of alarm. And we can offer, like a mental health department, the attention. In public health, in public service, all the services are free. You can reach mental health in every district, and you can have access to psychotherapy, to psychiatry, weight medication, absolutely free. And then I hope that this type of program can help the people to reach all the service of mental health.
Can you talk about some of the other, I guess, common mental health diseases that are out there in Belize that have come through your
before and after COVID pandemic, we have increasing the sign of anxiety. The people is a lot of nervous, trembling, with a lot of physical symptoms. Anxiety, most of the time, is linked with physical symptoms, like a problem to eat, problem to go with gastrointestinal problem, trembling, headache, backache. It's a lot of somatic symptoms. This is another one. After COVID, was increasing 25% in all the world. Depression and anxiety. And another usual, here in Belize, another problem is drugs.
Yeah.
Mental health disorder induced by drugs. I see in the clinical practice young people of 14, 13 years with psychosis due by marijuana. Because some power population think that marijuana is only a weed, is a natural and we can use it. Absolutely no, it's a drugs. And it's affecting the young generation of Belizean people. And most of them now are dealing with that problem. anxiety due for drugs, psychosis due for drugs. What means psychosis? Psychosis is a loss of contact with reality. The people don't react in the usual way to reality. They are living in another world. In
parallel existence.
Exactly. And that is affecting a lot of people here in Belize. And this is another topic that we need to speak about that.
Earlier we were discussing the conversation itself. And I had alluded that maybe we don't talk about it enough, or we do. So from your standpoint, and I know Lucian said no, we don't talk about it enough. So from your standpoint, what can be done more so that we can continue to have the conversation? At what level would you like to see it?
Okay, so for example, from the primary school level, we don't see our children as beings who have feelings, who have emotions, who go through depression and anxiety and all these things. So for me, I would want to see education happen from that level. I think the Ministry of Education needs to, and I am speaking with people how this is possible, that a counselor for every level in or every division in every primary school is being assigned, because at the end of the day, our children are going through trauma like we have never seen before. They're being exposed to things in their daily lives that we have never seen before. I grew up in the south side of Belize, and to see how gun violence have affected children, I see that on a day-to-day basis, and to see that there is a lack of support. So there need to be a counselor assigned at every level for primary schools. At the high school level, we know that they have a counselor assigned, and they also have a peer helper program. I would also want to see that kind of amplified, kind of expanded to make it mandatory that every high school needs to implement this, because at the end of the day, once we become more sensitized to the conversation, then the conversation will become, or will happen more naturally. Take, for example, going left field here about the ICJ issue. Everyone was talking about it because at every level sensitization was happening, and that needs to happen. Also, the media needs to take the bull by the horn and have more open conversation, not from the point of view of professionals coming in to explain what mental health is, but from us advocates to speak on our experiences. There are people who walk and talk every day, and they feel like they have to carry the lie that I need to carry these things on my own because my family is depending on me, not recognizing that you also need support. And you know, Dr. Bonilla said something quite interesting earlier. Even the mental health professionals are not seeking the help that they so justly need. And the thing is if you're going to be a mental health professional, because I've also gotten training in counseling, and one of the things, the first thing that they tell you, as a counselor, you have to have a counselor. And it just the conversation needs to be happening from the developmental stages in children, help them understand emotions and the significance of emotions. I've always seen anger as a bad emotion, but anger is also something that tells us when something is wrong and when we need to adjust ourselves. But we have been a society that said something as simple as, well, if you feel angry, bottle it up, hide it, because you're not supposed to feel that way.
It's not going to help, because ultimately you're going to explode, and the wrong persons are going to be affected by that pent-up anger. Let's go in a different direction. I'll take you on this, right? You mentioned earlier the media's responsibility in having the conversation. But what a lot of people don't understand is that we too have our baggage, so to speak, right? And it's difficult sometimes for us to uphold certain fundamentals if we ourselves are going through some of these issues. I'll use myself as an example. I believe 2012, 2013 was a most murderous year in the country's history, right? And as a reporter, I was covering sometimes 3-4 murders a day, right? had a young family, right? And coming to work and going to cover this scene, that scene, the other scene. For some people, you get desensitized. For other people, you get hyper-sensitized, right? And after a while, I realized that while I'm able to manage at work and deliver the stories, at the end of the day, I'm completely mentally spent. Like, I can't do anything else, right? And so I can't go home direct because then I'll be transferring that energy from the field to my young family, and it's unfair to them, right? But you're in a situation where the woman and the child are both excited to see you at the end of the day, but your day has been one of the heaviest because you're dealing with all of these scenes that will play through your mind when you're trying to rest and what have you. And so, like for me, and I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, none of the above, but I kind of self-diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder because I knew something was wrong, right? I didn't turn to any other vice per se, but I just knew something was wrong. And it's because of the level of exposure that I was having to covering these kinds of stories. Now, you could imagine the people who are direct victims or exposed to it by way of their family or what have you, what they must be going through. So if I am to uphold certain expectations and I myself am grappling with certain things by way of my job, it makes it all the more difficult. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm simply saying that we all have our load to carry, so to speak, right? And not all of us are strong enough to seek the help that we need. Some people bottle it up. Some people suffer in silence, so to speak. And when they do release, the release is aimed after at the wrong people, not necessarily the cause of what is creating this issue in you. I'll ask you, Carla, to share with us what your turning point was. Because at some point you came to a realization where you decided you needed help, or you decided maybe I can help someone now once you've overcome that issue.
I'm really glad that you mentioned self-diagnosis because I personally feel that for me, I used to kind of want to deny that there's something wrong with me, even though I know that I'm having these experiences, because I don't have a diagnosis as yet as to, you know, what specifically, but I don't have a name for it, even though I know that I struggle with bouts of depression. You don't have that official piece of paper saying it. But a lot of the time, self-diagnosis is a stepping stone to actually getting the help that you need, because you know what you're going through, you know what you've experienced, and kind of accepting that I know I'm not okay. That was my first step to not just treating myself and treating my mental illness and what I struggle with, but wanting to help other people. It's accepting, you know, it's okay to not be okay. Like, I had that moment, and in wanting to better manage my mental health, that was how I started to do the things that I need to be able to better function. Like we were talking about journaling and mindfulness and that kind of stuff. So for me, it was acknowledging that I'm not okay and there's nothing wrong, inherently wrong with that. That doesn't make me less than, and you know, it's completely okay. So that for me was my moment.
So, I mean, the three of you here are advocates. You understand what is happening to you and perhaps how you can help others. But in the line and in the grand scheme of things, the average civilian doesn't know where to seek help, or might think that they can't afford the help that they need. And yes, it is one of the bigger issues. So talk about awareness, talk about where can somebody seek these help. I know people know things like Mind Health Connect and so forth, but the average civilian can't afford $80 a session for therapy, right? So what can be done in this avenue to help these cases?
I think that I continue saying that the key is education, and you, like a journalist, can explain to the population that Ministry of Health is giving all that support by free, and because it's absolutely expensive. By example, if you are going to take CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, at least we need 14 sessions, 40 sessions of $100 by session. Another counselor is earning 120, 140. Maybe the people can do one or two, but they cut the therapy. The other thing is the cost of medication. In private, some medication that we are giving free to the people, they must pay $100, $200 every month for 1 year. It's very, very expensive. I think that the people is talking, the new generation is talking about mental health, but we need to reach the level that people must to normalize talking about mental health. Like I feeling flu, I feeling with headache, because mental health is a part of health. And only to that the people know that 1 in 8 person have a mental disorder. Don't mean that he's crazy, she's crazy. Absolutely no. Mental disorder can be anxiety, dysthymia, post-traumatic stress disorder, grief, pathological grief, anger management. All that issues are mental health. 1 in 8. Do you imagine how many people work here? 1 in 8 can have a mental disorder by statistic. Then we offer all that service free. And the people, the Belizean people, must to know that all this service is free. You can reach, you can get psychiatry support, you can get counseling support, the medications, social work support, free. If they have the money to go into the private, they are free to do it. But the Ministry of Health is offering that free, trying to reach the population. In every district, we have a mental health service. Every district in Belize, and the people must to know that.
And these are offered by the Ministry of Health.
Ministry of Health.
I want to end this segment in talking about what more can people do to help other persons. We have our advocates here, but sometimes somebody can be going through a suicidal episode, and I am in the house. What can I do? What can I do to help? What can I do to help my friend who's going through severe depression? How can I aid them in the right direction?
Being you gave a scenario of a friend, as a friend, the most you can do is support. Because therapy will be out of your hands. So the support would be by encouraging them to know that, listen, I'm here for you, and there is also help out there for you as well. And encourage them to seek that help. That's the main thing a friend can do. I won't be able to teach you skills here and say do A, B, C, but just support. As a friend, you know your friend. You know what that friend would allow, not allow, how far you can go, not go, how to go around little circles with your friend. So you just support your friend being a friend. All right?
Final thoughts from our advocates for mental health. Dave.
I would just like to take this opportunity to encourage people to take their mental health more seriously. Just from my own observations, I would say that a lot of people, especially here in Belize, are very, very, very unhappy. We're dealing with a lot of trauma, and if you want evidence for that unhappiness, I would say, maybe just check out the comment section on a lot of things that happen in Belize, like, for example, KTV. And
humble brag.
And you see the type of venom that people spew on these platforms, and I can't help but look on that and think, these people are deeply unhappy.
It's all vitriol.
Yeah, and it's all just, projecting and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, as well, as we talk about the different generations, since I've started speaking more openly about mental health, I've gotten a lot of young people, younger people, what they call the Gen Zs and stuff, reaching out to me, asking for support, asking where they could find resources. A couple months ago, I did this teen summit that was held by the Belmopan City Council, and it was with high school age students, and one of the things that they asked was, what is something that they would like to talk about more? What is something that they would like more resources on? And one of the top responses from the hundreds of high schoolers was mental health. There is a huge need in our country to be more open about talking about mental health to the extent that we do about physical health. And I just want to encourage people to keep that in mind, to know that whatever you're going through, you're not alone in going through it. And it's like Kyla said, it's okay to not be okay. But it starts with being willing to face that, being willing to face what you're going through, being willing to, as she said, to own up and say, something is wrong. I need to talk to someone, I need help, I need to take accountability for how I'm feeling, and I need to heal.
Well, Alex relayed but I just want to kind of reiterate what he said, in that it's okay to not be okay, and our mental health is just as important as our physical health. So there's no reason why we should be ignoring it when we feel that something isn't necessarily right, or we're not feeling 100, so to speak, mentally. The resources are there, as Dr. Matos said. Sorry. The resources are there. We might not know about it as much yet, but they are there. So if you know that you need help, then I would say seek out that help, even if it's just in your surrounding community, that or a professional. The help is there.
Part of my advocacy is that I advocate for us to normalize hard conversations. And conversations around mental health is the hardest to have with those who are closest to us. And I think it's high time that our families and our friends be open-minded to these types of conversations, and that we be more genuinely welcoming to one another, because your experience is not my experience. Something that may seem like a light load to you may be the heaviest for somebody else. And I think we need to get rid of the judgment, and we need to be more cognizant of each other. Something as simple as sharing a smile or recognizing the feelings of others. Those are things that we need to do to make practical steps so that we can make this world a bit more livable. And I recently saw a talk about, TED Talk, about civility, and how civility improves the lives of others when we're civil to one another. And it's so sad because Alex just talked about our unhappiness, and in another TED Talk they talk about when last did you smile. And for children, they said, oh, we smiled yesterday. And as people got older and older and older, you find that laughter became less and less frequent, and then it went up back over the age of 80. And then the average life expectancy is what, around 76, 78?
So you'll never get the laugh.
So you'll never get the laugh. So I think we need to find also areas where we can make people smile more and to have hard conversations.
Perfect.
I 100% agree.
If I can just say something. I'm so glad you mentioned that I tend to smile a lot, just so. But that's from childhood. But somehow, I live by this thing that at the end of the day, it's how you make someone feel. So, if someone feels a certain way around you, that's the energy they're gonna start, embedding and showing and what's. Okay, if you give off an energy that is not acceptable, that person, you can see how it goes right down. So, yeah. Totally agree with that.
Thank you so much, Nurse Bonilla. Thank you, Dr. Matos. Advocates, thank you for being here this morning, but we are out of time. we should talk more about mental health, that everybody business. With that, we are going to take our next break, and we'll be back with our next conversation for this morning, so stay tuned.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
¿Reúnes los requisitos para la amnistía 2022? Esta es tu oportunidad de aplicar. En el sitio web www.immigration.gov.bz encontrarás una lista completa de todos los documentos necesarios para la amnistía según los criterios para los que eres elegible. Asegúrese de reunir todos los documentos generales y de respaldos necesarios y las traducciones necesarias. Haz tu cita en línea con cualquiera de nuestros centros de registro a nivel nacional. Ahí presentarás tus documentos y completarás las entrevistas requeridas. Después, se te entregará un recibo de aceptación. Mientras esperas una decisión sobre tu solicitud, puedes seguirlo en línea y saber cuándo será el pago en la oficina de tesorería del gobierno más cercana. Una vez completa, recibirás tu tarjeta de residencia permanente que muestra tu estado legal en Belice. Obtenga más información sobre la amnistía 2022 y cómo presentar tu solicitud en línea en www.immigration.gov.bz. Prepárate, el plazo de inscripción será del 2 de agosto al 30 de noviembre de 2022. Amnistía de Belice 2022. Continuemos construyendo Belice juntos.
Excuse me, sir?
Yes.
But how can you pay with your phone?
B-Box.
What? What is B-Box?
B-Box have been his newest rewards program.
Really? Where I could get it from?
Man, check on the website bbox.bz or you could download it from the App Store. And if you still don't know, check that young lady there and she'll hook you up.
I will surely do so. Good afternoon, miss. Can you hook me up with B-Box? Sure. There we go.
Great Belize Productions Channel 5, proud winner of 9 Caribbean Media Awards for 2021. Best Investigative Report, Best News Item, Best Coverage of People with Disabilities, Best Financial Literacy Journalism, Best Videographer, Best Television Commercial Spot, and the People's Choice Award, with 2 special mentions for Financial Literacy Journalism.
Dwayne Moody, Isani Cayetano, Marian Ali, Paul Lopez. Your News 5 Belize teams do whatever it takes, go wherever they need to go, so you can catch the story wherever you are, whenever you want, on whatever device. Channel 5 Belize on television, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Because news is now everywhere, all the time. And so are we?
Whether you're at home, on the road, at work, or at school, if you see news happening or suspect that something might be up, call or text the Channel 5 News Belize tip line at 672-5555. You don't have to give us your name, just give us the tip. That's 672-5555. Call or text us so we can check it out.
Good morning, and we are back. And if you're joining us right now, we are moving into our second conversation for this morning, all about the International Day of the Girl Child. In studio with us, we have three lovely ladies from various high schools, all talk about what this year's theme means to them. Coming from St. Vernon High School, we have Jalissa Scott. Why? Jalissa Scott. Good morning, Jalissa. We have Emily Sarimento from Gwenlis High School and Leah McCord from EP York High School. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. All right. So I wanted to start off by talking about the International Day of the Girl Child. And it is in line with the problems that girls face in society today, whether that be education, economics, politics, however you want it. And the theme this year is Our Time is Now, Our Rights, Our Future. Jalissa, let's start with you. Tell us what this theme means for you.
Well, we were discussing at the back. To me, female really don't have the opportunity. Female doesn't have the opportunity to do what they want. Always what males want. We have discrimination about our body, like we're only supposed to do what they want with our body, not what we want. Also our jobs. Female have certain jobs they could do, but not what we want. That's on my behalf.
Okay. Emily, tell me.
Well, as Jalissa said, like, with girls doesn't really have like the right in their like career, like they don't have like, the males will look at the female like they don't have the capability to do as they can do, like they don't think we have the strength, like we're just like all about emotional, like, you know, like we're weak. And right, so like in Belize, like the drivers, you only see like male drivers and you don't like, really see like female drivers, because as we were saying, like in there were like every time they see like someone that can't drive, they were like, oh, that's like a woman in the car that can't drive, and like they're just like that's the first thing that will come to mind, right? So my saying would be like they don't really like believe what female can do, what a male can do. Yes.
And what about opportunities? How do you see the opportunities for young girls and females?
Well, growing up, what I experienced was that you would always see a female in the doing the traditional roles, which follow along with cultures or beliefs. You would always see them doing housework, looking after kids, cooking, stuff like that. And I believe that that hinders your academic scores. Like when you're focused on all the people in your house or focused on everyone else but yourself, it slows down how you learn, and it just disrupts the process. And because of that, when you're looking at your grades, that also affects what college you get into, or it affects how well you do in school. And overall, that just, it messes up with what you're going to be in the future. So let's say you wanted to be a lawyer, but when you're studying in high school, you couldn't focus on yourself, which messed up with your grades. And because of that, when you were looking to get into a college, you couldn't get into the one that you wanted, like the top tier schools, like maybe Harvard, maybe you want to go to Yale and stuff like that. And when you're looking at things like that, when you're trying to be a lawyer, per se, it just
overall, like when you're trying to get into the top tier schools, when you're looking to be a lawyer, sorry, I'm mumbling, but
No, it's okay. I get what you mean.
Yes, because you're not from the top tier schools, people wouldn't look at, like, they wouldn't fully recommend you, you know, stuff like that. So that messes up with your opportunities.
And do you see these realities in your community?
Yes, I do, because speaking from experience, I have a couple friends who, as a female, they have to work right now, and because of that, they're missing out on a lot of school. And when they're in school, you can see her shining. You can see that she's smart, but because she's missing out on so much school, her grades are bad right now, and it's because she has to provide for her family. So yes, I do see it in my community, and it's so much more than that. There's so many other people. Like one of my friends also, she was sick, and she still had to look after her younger siblings. She had to cook, she had to clean, and because of that, she had to drop out of my school because she was failing as well.
All right, so I'm in a very, very delicate seat, right? A ratio of 4 to 1, right?
Yes.
So I have to tread very, very carefully.
Just a little
here.
bit.
Okay, now I've listened carefully to what you young ladies have shared, and I acknowledge it and I respect it. What I'm getting from you is a sense of equality, wanting for the playing field to be as level as possible for opportunities for male and females. That's fair enough to say, right? Now, I've also listened to what you've shared in terms of academic pursuits, school, and what the reality of your life may be at home or otherwise, right? Some situations aren't your creation. Some situations you're naturally born into, right? So that when you have a scenario where you want to be a lawyer, that's all you're dreaming about, that's all you're working towards individually, but your parents have 6 of you guys, right? And you fall somewhere either in the middle or as the eldest of 6 children, automatically that comes with certain responsibilities that you can't shy away from. You have to look after a Lee brother, you have to look after a Lee sister, you have certain chores, etc. Now, I think part of that is being able to understand the situation that you're in. You didn't cause it, but you have a role and responsibility to your parents and to your siblings as much as you have to your school, right? And so the idea here is not to take your mind off your dream or your goal, but to try to balance how you're able to operate at home and at school. You use the example of a friend of yours who is bright otherwise, but because she has to be working or because she has missed so much classes that she doesn't have the proper tuition, so to speak, cannot perform academically because her grades aren't where it's supposed to be. Right? I think you as her friend, and I'm coming across as if though I'm giving advice, but it's just having listened, right? I think you as her friend, your role is to motivate her to see how best she can complete her sessions in school. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to move far ahead and see someone fall behind. Not when you're friends, not when you're the best of friends, right? You have to be able to bring each other along, right? I think though, by and large, when you look at the situation in Belize, I can't speak for anywhere else in the world, but I'll speak for Belize, right? The tide is turning, where you have more females taking up certain roles that we men, for whatever reason, have given up on. You find that if you look at the dropout rate, for instance, more males are out of school than they should be, right? And so when you look at that versus academic qualification down the road, perhaps you'd have a better opportunity at getting certain jobs that the unqualified male wouldn't have. So maybe there's a change in the way things are, the way our society works, right? So maybe that's something you guys can look at as well as something to look forward to.
I'll be devil's advocate. I will play the role of the girl and to take it a step further, and I will kind of piggyback on what you said about the responsibility, right? Because as young women and as a woman, there are certain societal expectations. Not so much so that it's always going to be from the men, but just society in general. Where even if you are a working career woman, you're still expected to be the domestic wife at home. And that in itself of equality or equity, if I may, is already unbalanced. It's already, all right, I want to be a career woman and I want to be able to provide, but I also have to work my 8 to 5 and then come home, cook, clean, and make sure that everything is ready for the next day. So when I'm
Is it too much to ask though, or is it an unrealistic expectation?
Yes, please. I believe that all the while that it may be an unrealistic expectation, that I believe that the domestic chores can be shared. If I'm the breadwinner, looking at it, if I'm the one making the money in the house, I work from a 9 to 5, I come home, at least have the dishes washed. That, like, we could share like from 5 to 6, maybe say 5 to 6, or until I come home. You look after the kids if we have kids. When I don't get my early nap, I don't take my early rest, I could help you out with the chores, I could help around the house, but please do not expect me to work so long during the day and then when I come back home, I still have to do everything else.
Exactly.
It could be shared.
And the reality is that is the expectation for the woman in the house. And I 100% there with you. Please advocate some more, because that comes with the reasons why we have this day, to raise this awareness as to how you guys can progress for a better future. So while we are, I 100% agree with this, Honey, that we see a more awareness for and campaigns for women in education and so forth. Our male rate is at an all-time low in terms of school. You have more male dropouts and so forth, and so we do advocate for those. But the society is still imbalanced when it comes to the expectations of what a young girl must provide or what a young girl must bring to the table. Because now, yes, you have opportunities. You can be a lawyer in this day and age. You can be a mechanic in this day and age. You can do all of these things. But there is still that expectation of smile and look pretty for the camera, because that is what you're supposed to do as a woman. So in terms of what you think society needs to change for young girls, tell me what you think.
I think that females not only want to be seen because of their looks or their body shape or whatever males classify us as, but we also want to be heard. We want to have the opportunity to speak and explain how we feel, not classify we as emotional or we're too soft. We just need the opportunity to say how, okay, I was researching last night and I found out that Clara Zetkin, she was the one that came up with this Woman's Day. She saw injustice, that was back in the days when females couldn't vote. She saw injustice and she had this whole riot. So a lot of people discriminate. She get beaten. People burn down her clothes off of her line or things like that. But she never gave up. And I think that what females want, because she's like a role model now for most females. And I think that what we want to say, for we want to just speak up. We want to have that opportunity for the way males could, because females could do what males could do, maybe even better, who knows.
Fair enough.
And like, if like now like we have like role models, like younger like female will like look at them and like they will be motivated to try like become like, you know, like cause as you said, like they have like now we can like do, yes, we can like do the same job as them, but when we're in that position, they will still like, we have to look at the era like when they're cause they will have more males in that position, and they will look down on the girl, and they will like be, oh, she just need to work in the office, like the position, like for example, like we did speak about that, and like fire workers, like they will like only have the male out in the field, and the females like behind the phone, and like you know. So that we need to work on, because not only males can be out there doing that, females can do the same. They can like we can do the same. Like all of us are equal, and we have the same strength to do it.
So let me ask you guys quickly then, who are some of your female role models, women role models? I ask because I am so far detached from being a teenager, right? so if I am to try to remember who my male role models were at the time when I was a teenager, I wouldn't be able to remember. But I am asking that in the context of everything that's happening around us. You have social media, you have all of these women, all of these men who stand for something. Some stand for something positive, some stand for all the wrong things, but we still look up to them nonetheless. Who are some of your role models?
Like my role model would be, well, I know like my mother, for example, like, she's my role model, because she does both. She does the household like stuff, and she works, so she does both, and I look upon her like she have this strength, she have this capability, she's smart, and she just really motivates me to try to become like her, because honestly, she went to America, right, and she said it was like difficult in America, like being a woman there, because she said male get more opportunity, more jobs, and she was like, even though it was like struggling for her, like she had struggles like there with work, she still did it, and that right there does like motivate me, inspire me actually, because something like that, it was like difficult, but she still went through it with her best capability, and that's why I would like say my mother is my role model.
I have multiple role models in my life. First of all, like she said, her mother. I have my mother and my older sister. And then I also have this artist that I look up to, Melanie Martinez. But the reason why I look up to my mother and my sister is because they went through a lot of struggles back then. And they are still going through those same struggles today. Like my older sister, she suffers from anxiety. And she has a child, right, that she has to look after. And they went through a lot, and I'm glad that they're still able to be there for me and to try to help me out. And I look up to Melanie Martinez because as an artist, she motivates people. She speaks up about problems in the world and about problems that we as women go through. And I look up to them because they push people. They motivate you to move forward, to advance, and that is why I do that.
My role model, I have two actually. My grandma and Alicia Clara. Alicia Clara is a singer. She uses her voice to express her feelings because nobody never listened to her otherwise. My granny, she is my biggest role model. She has kids her own, and she still deal with her grandkids. My mom has 3 kids, and 3 of us is with my grandmother. My grandmother can't walk that much, but she still finds it her hard time to get up out of bed, get us ready to school. When we come home, food is on the table, and everything is done.
Perfect. Well, ladies, I hope that you are able to inspire a young girl that is watching and paying attention this morning. And I mean, I applaud you for coming on. I know that this is something that is difficult, and so congratulations to the 3 of you for getting through. You did a great job. stay in school. I think we're going to have school today. Yeah, don't pass it. And we expect great things. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
And with that, we are going to take our final break and we'll wrap up. So stay tuned.
Everyone, including our elderly, needs to stay connected with their loved ones. With Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program, senior citizens can sign up for 10 megabytes of unlimited internet at a low monthly cost of $25. Citizens over 65 can sign up with a valid ID and receive free installation plus 1 month free on selected broadband plans. Visit a Smart showroom near you for more information on how you can enjoy Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program. Smart, bringing people together.
Galenia Hospital, located in Cancun, Mexico's premier tourism destination, is a state-of-the-art healthcare facility that provides highly specialized medical services. We are Quintana Roo's biggest private hospital with board-certified doctors and staff. Some of our services include cath lab, adult intensive care unit, neonatal intensive care unit, emergency rooms, operating theaters, ambulance services, and more. We are a medically accredited hospital by JCI, Accreditation Canada International, and General Health Council, providing extraordinary care in every specialty, from our cardiology department to our neurology center. We are focused on treating the entire person, body, mind, and spirit. Contact us at medicaltourism@hospitalgalenia.com or visit our website at www.hospitalgalenia.com. Come to Galenia Hospital in Cancun for a truly personal medical care experience.
Your life just got a lot less complicated with Belize Bank Contactless MasterCard Debit Card. Introducing our Standard Debit and MasterCard Platinum Debit Cards. Now you can make purchases anywhere MasterCard is accepted with one tap, pay and go. Your contactless card never has to leave your hands, especially in these times. And your card is embedded with multiple layers of security. Platinum cardholders get to enjoy extra benefits like price protection, purchase protection, trip inconvenience, and luggage protection, just to name a few. Start enjoying a cashless lifestyle today with the Belize Bank.
Hola usuario de eCash, la aplicación eCash está disponible en español. Cambiar el idioma de tu aplicación de eCash de inglés a español es rápido y sencillo. Deja mostrarte cómo se hace. Primero, abre tu aplicación eCash. Introduce tu PIN. Toca el icono More en la parte inferior de tu pantalla. Selecciona Security, selecciona Language y luego selecciona Spanish. Vuelve a introducir tu PIN y ya está. Tu aplicación de eCash está ahora en español y puedes seguir disfrutando de tu cartera digital eCash. La aplicación eCash de Belize Bank te hace la vida más fácil.
Reusable plastics. Did you know that until we find an alternative for plastic and all its uses, we will continue to need plastics, such as in the health sector? Plastic becomes a huge problem for Belize when it becomes waste and is improperly disposed of. When it is thrown on the side of the road and in our rivers and seas, it's eaten by animals and in turn by people, and it becomes an environmental and health issue. It costs us money for disposal, filling up dumps and landfills, and paying for associated healthcare. So what can you do? Choose to refuse single-use plastics is step 1. Step 2, Instead, use the plastics that were meant to be reused, like coffee cups, water bottles, and food containers. We're not talking about buying a $1 bottle of water. I mean, you can, but how long will that last you? Reusable plastics keep plastics out of the environment for a much longer time and are even better than other forms of plastics like biodegradable or even compostable or bio-based plastics. By reusing, you are also saving money since you aren't rebuying the same thing over again. Think about it. How many bottles of water do you buy every week? How much does that cost compared to the cost of a reusable bottle? Imagine what you can do with the extra money. Click on the link below to see what you can do to help end the nightmare of single-use plastics. I'm Alison Castillo, and now you know.
Everyone, including our elderly, needs to stay connected with their loved ones. With Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program, senior citizens can sign up for 10 megabytes of unlimited internet at a low monthly cost of $25. Citizens over 65 can sign up with a valid ID and receive free installation plus 1 month free on selected broadband plans. Visit a Smart showroom near you for more information on how you can enjoy Smart's Golden Citizen broadband program. Smart, bringing people together.
And we are back just like that. Tuesday morning show has come to a close for today. We want to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this morning, as well as our guests. We had our first conversation about Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day, and our second conversation about the International Day of the Girl Child. We want to thank our guests for coming in and having these conversations this morning. But before we go, we have a birthday shout out for you, and we would like to say a very, very happy birthday to Gretel Jones. Happy birthday, Gretel. Have a wonderful and blessed day from your friends and your family, and from all of us here at Channel 5. Have a blessed birthday. And if you have a birthday shout out or a question or a comment, you can always drop us a line right here at oye@channel5believe.com. You can catch our live stream on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and our highlights on Instagram at oye.believe. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow when you open your eyes
To start your morning right.
Be sure to keep your eyes, your minds,
And your hearts open.
Have a great day. Goodbye, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.